Today we'll be doing the speed test comparison between the Samsung Galaxy A36 and the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra. Now S25 Ultra is like a flagship phone from the Samsung itself, and the A36 is like kind of a budget phone from the Samsung. And we'll be just comparing like whether the price difference in between these both devices just makes any difference. Both are just running on a One UI 7, which is the latest and greatest flagship Android firmware you can get on these both devices from the Samsung. And on the left we have the S25 Ultra, and on the right we have the A36. S25 Ultra, if we consider the chipset, is the Snapdragon 8 Elite, which is a flagship chipset from the Qualcomm itself right now, and it is like kind of an overclock version of that one. I'm not sure like if that would just make a lot of difference with regards to like a normal Snapdragon 8 Elite or for Galaxy One. Nevertheless, it's kind of a slightly overclocked of the performance scores you can get on the S25 Ultra. It's equipped with a 12 gigs of RAM. On the right, we get to see the Qualcomm Snapdragon 6 Gen 3, which is the 4nm chipset. The specific version is like 6 GB of RAM, which is half of what you can get on the S25 Ultra. But obviously it's kind of a fraction of the price as well. Now if you're the person who's just considering like these both devices, and whether you're just thinking like maybe a person who's just looking forward to just get the phone and get a higher end camera with the difference of the price and get the A36, then this might be the video. Or if you're just considering your main phone as a camera as well, so if you might want to just consider the S25 Ultra, so this might be the video for you guys. So we'll be but just doing the speed test comparison between these both phones. Obviously like these both are like pretty much different in like how these devices performs, but the software itself and how it is being integrated is essentially same. Both displays are 120 Hz displays. And yeah, and before we start the test, just wanted to make sure you guys that the both devices are be connected to the same network, and like there's no background apps running. And we just go ahead and just launch the test itself. So starting with the Pinterest, so faster on the S25 Ultra. And now we just run the InShot, faster on the S25 Ultra. Feeling like the A36 is performing pretty well. It's not that much I mean there is a difference, but the price difference, like it doesn't make sense, I would just say, at this price at this moment. But yeah, we just move to the higher end apps and we just see how these devices both performs in handling those graphic intensive tasks. And we just launch the Play Store on these both. So S25 kind of instant calendar, slightly faster on the S25 Ultra. And now we just launched the YouTube. Alright, so faster on the S25 Ultra. We'll just check the animations on these both phones. Let's check the S20 first, the A36 over here. Pretty snappy. Now we'll try on the S25 Ultra. Pretty smooth, obviously, as you can expect from the device at this price point. Pretty much smooth, you can see. Yeah, pretty much nice, I would just say. Now we'll just go ahead and just launch the speed test. Faster on the S25 Ultra. And now we just go ahead and just launch the speed test on these both phones. Alright, faster on the S25 Ultra, and we're just waiting on the A36 to finish the test. Alright, now we just launched the calculator. Pretty much fast, slightly faster on the S25 Ultra. Now we just go ahead and launch the camera. Faster on the S25 Ultra. And now we just launch the Xperia. Obviously faster on the S25 Ultra. Now we just go ahead and just launch the light cut. Faster on the S25 Ultra. Obviously, like if we just go ahead and just render some video, so it will be like faster on the S25 Ultra because of the higher end processor on that one, and the chipset is much more better. Now we just go ahead and just open the Google Chrome. Alright, faster on the S25 Ultra, and I can feel like the brightness on the S25 Ultra is so much more than the Samsung Galaxy A36, and the colors are pretty much nice. But regarding the screen touch and everything, feels pretty much similar. I would just say like the scrolling, I couldn't find any difference. I hope so. The bed, alright, so it's full. Yeah, so it's pretty nice. Let me see one thing, if or it's a dark mode. Adapt this brightness. Alright, so yeah, so the smoothness of the screen feels pretty much nice on both phones. There's nothing to complain. Now we just open something and we see how these ones. So yeah, pretty much nice. S25 Ultra was slightly faster, but yeah, considering the price point, you have to just think of this video as considering the price point of these both devices. But nevertheless, obviously the S25 Ultra is faster. And now we just go ahead and just open the clock. Faster on the S25 Ultra, but very kind of a negligible kind of difference on these lighter apps. Now we just go ahead and just open the Amazon. Alright, faster on the S25 Ultra. And now we just go ahead and just launch light games on this one. Like we'll start with the Subway Surf. So faster on the S25 Ultra. We just go ahead and just play game slightly on this one. So the screen is pretty much nice with regards to the color reproduction. I would just say there's nothing to complain. It doesn't feel like resolution wise is somewhere like if it's inferior to the bigger Galaxy S25 Ultra. Pretty much nice and clear, crystal clear display you can get out of this device A36. Considering that like it's kind of a fraction of the price of the S25 Ultra. The touch is pretty much nice. Doesn't feel like a mid-range phone at all. Absolutely perfect, I can say. The animation sometimes feels laggy, but it's not to a point where it just gets annoying. But it is pretty nice. I would just say it's not that bad. We just go ahead and just play on the S25 Ultra. Yeah, obviously the screen is pretty nice on this one, but it was great on the A36 as well. Pretty much a smooth touch on both devices, nothing to complain. Yeah, pretty much nice, I would just say. Now we just go ahead and just launch further games. We just go ahead to Rare Sea Temple Run 2, and then we just launch this game. So faster on the S25 Ultra. The colors, obviously it feels you to the much more brightness on the S25 Ultra, looks better. The screen on the A36 feels slightly dull, but obviously it's not that bad as you will think of. One thing issue that we notice, like the wobbliness on these both phones is like equally annoying, you can say, like because of the camera bump. So yeah, ergonomically, like if you're just laying device flat on the ground, so it doesn't feel right. like it doesn't feel nice to use flat without the case on the phone itself. Now we just go ahead and just launch the S-False Legends Unite. So it was faster on the S25 Ultra, and so here it just S25 Ultra shines. Like in the animations, you'll feel slightly smoother. I mean, not slightly, but much more smoother. Now we just go ahead and just launch the CSR Racing 2. Faster on the S25 Ultra. Now we just go ahead and just launch the Rail Racing 3. Or faster on the S25 Ultra. Then we just launched the Modern Combat 5. Alright, faster on the S25 Ultra. And now we just go ahead and just launch the NFS No Limits. It's faster on the S25 Ultra. Alright, so now we just go ahead and just launch the King Arthur. By the way, the speakers on the A36 are pretty much decent. Now, one thing I noticed in the past that the Samsung used to put weaker speakers on these mid-range phones, but this time, like even the Galaxy S25 Ultra has the greatest speaker that you can get right now in the market itself among the flagships. Like I personally like better than the iPhone itself. It's about the taste itself, like how you like the speaker to be. And the A36 also had a pretty much great speaker this time that you can see. So yeah, so S25 Ultra was the faster one to open the King Arthur, and we just go ahead and just launch the Call of Duty Warzone. So these are quite graphic intensive and kind of a high FPS games, and we'll see which one performs adequately. And it never means like you cannot play the games on the A36. Like I've tried all of the games. You can just check out my other videos as well. And the A36 is pretty much well in terms of regarding to like when it comes to the high FPS games you can play on this one. And it performs pretty much great. I would just say might be the game itself like though slower than the S25 Ultra as can be seen in this case, but nevertheless like the games when you're just trying to play the game itself, there's no kind of lag that I notice in playing the game itself. So it's not kind of a thing that you cannot play the flagship games on this device. So now we just go ahead and just launch the Blood Strike. and the S25 Ultra was the first one to open this one. And now we just go ahead and just launch the Arena of Whaler. So faster on the S25 Ultra, but the A36 like is kind of performing well. It's not that bad, I would just say, considering the price point. And now we just go ahead and just launch the Diablo Immortal. So S25 Ultra was the first one to open. And so now we'll be just launching the Wuthering Waves. Alright, so luckily it was faster on the Galaxy A36. Not sure what happened here, but yeah, well, it is what it is. Now we just launched the Arena Breakout. So looks like it was faster on the S25 Ultra, like at least it is leading up to now. Yeah, I will just give this one to S25 Ultra. And now we'll just launch the Geekbench 6, and I've already done the test previously, so we just load the results for these both. You just go into the history, and we just load the CPU results over here. Alright, so as we can see the CPU results, obviously like this is much more different that you can expect. So on the S25 Ultra you get the single core performance of the 2503 and the multi-core performance of 9172. On the A36 you're just getting 999 as a single core score and a 2923 as a multi-core score. And now we just go ahead and just check the GPU results that we ran the test previously. So obviously there's like a significant difference with regards to the chipset that the S25 Ultra has. Like there's no point of like discussing results, like there's much more difference. However, we just talk about the real-time performance, like what is the actual difference between these both phones. So as we see on paper, so you can see like 14,567 GPU OpenCL score, and on the A36 you just get the 2233. So now we'll be just running the 3D mark test over here, and we just to see how these both perform. So we'll be just running the wildlife test over here. So let's go ahead. So there's like a much more difference in the frame rates on these both devices. So that means like the 120 hertz display itself doesn't add to the frame rates. Like there has to be a good GPU and the CPU to match that frame rates as well. So yeah, so even if it's like a A36 have like kind of a 120 hertz display, but it will be just benefit to you guys like to a certain point, because there's a gap due to the processor and the GPU itself that you have on the A36. So that kind of creates a bottleneck for the gameplay itself. So S25 Ultra has completed the test, following by almost by the Samsung Galaxy A36 as well, and we just discussed the results now for these both phones. So the overall score on the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra showed as to be maxed out. However, on the A36 it showed 3447, so there's nothing to just compare with regards to the frame rates. However, on the S25 Ultra, the average frame rates also just maxed out. On the A36 is 20.64. And we just talk about further metrics over here regarding the battery. So battery just stayed same on these both phones. The S25 Ultra remained at 88%. The A36 just remained on 60%. So both are like a 5000 mAh of battery. Regarding the temperatures, so S25 Ultra moved from 36 degree to 38 degrees centigrade. However, surprisingly the A36 remained same to 34 degrees centigrade. So like it ran a little bit cooler than the S25 Ultra. The frame rates, obviously the S25 Ultra is pushing more. Might be the reason that just pushing the temperature to be on the higher side than the A36. So frame rates are like 39 fps and upper limit is 152 fps. However, there's a significantly less frame rates that you can get on the A36. So it is like a 13 fps and the upper limit is 27 fps. So yeah, regarding the gaming, obviously you will just find slightly better, I mean not slightly but much more better experience on the S25 Ultra. However, once we just put these things into perspective, so like the gaming on the A36 is also very well. Like I've played kind of a high FPS games like Blood Strike, Arena Breakout, and these perform pretty much nice. Like the Wuthering Waves I've tried on this one and it performed like pretty nice. Didn't find any kind of like obviously there might be here and there performance drops because the processor itself is not that much great, but the performance wise it is adequate in terms like once it's being compared to the S25 Ultra with regards to the price point at which these both devices are in. So yeah, if like another question arises like whether you should get like an S25 Ultra. Now it all depends like upon like what do you prefer. Like so I always say like the S25 Ultra is kind of a all-rounder. Like it's a very well balanced phone. I can just say it's not that it does things in certain aspect better. Like if you talk about the cameras, the Chinese phones are like better in camera with up to 1-inch sensor, but it is very nice camera setup you get on the S25 Ultra, which can just compete with the Chinese phones as well. Obviously it might not be that great, but yeah, it matches that performance over there. Regarding the software, you get one of the bestest Android experience on the S25 Ultra. However, if you're just on a budget, so obviously the A36 would worth it, I would just say. However, this time like Samsung has just reduced or cut down a few things, like it is just a 128 gigs version you can see on in the North American market without the SD card slot. Now the SD card slot has been removed from the A35 to A36, which is kind of a bummer. Like 128 gigs of memory is very low without the option to just increase via micro SD card, I would just say. So that's the biggest drawback of this device. But yeah, Apple is doing the same thing as well. So I think the Samsung is now closely following that footstep, which is kind of, don't think so it makes sense. because many people just buy because they have an option to increase the memory. Like for me itself, like if I would just consider, so that's kind of a quite a significant uh, drop down from removing the SD card slot on this device. If you come in just from the A35, so I don't think that there's much more difference on the A36. Nevertheless, if you're just on a budget, so this is the best you can get right now in the market with regards to the Samsung. If you just want the best software experience, so yeah, so Samsung One UI 7 you can get on this A36, which is obviously the software plays a significant role while you just interacting with the phone itself. Obviously there's like a better mid-range devices you can get at this price point, but yeah, the overall experience, if you consider, so yeah, it is pretty much nice that you can get from the A36 right now. Now, which device to choose in between, obviously, and whether the so much difference with regards to the performance make any difference. Obviously, it makes a difference when you're just performing graphic intensive tasks on either of these devices. You'll just get things done faster on the S25 Ultra and obviously slower on the A36, but it gets the job done on the A36. So if you're on a time crunch, so and you're just on a fast-paced life, you can say, you might want to just go ahead and just get the S25 Ultra. If you're the person who's just considering, maybe just if you want to have one budget phone and a great camera, you can have a, so yeah, the A36 would be a great option with regards to that one. So yeah, so do let me know like which device would you choose. And like obviously like on paper, like these both devices are, like obviously these are much more different, and obviously the price difference also very much on between these both devices. So yeah, so do let me know like which device should you guys choose. And if you guys have any questions, please do let me know down in the comments, and please like, share and subscribe. And thank you for watching again. Have a good day. Bye.